will have built-in gutters to match existing gutters. The Wissahickon shift stone is proposed for the ground level exterior walls, which will match the existing walls, which are below the water table. There's going to be a new cast stone water table, which will line up with the existing water table. Faux windows are proposed on the north and east elevation on both the first and second floors, and true windows are going to be on the south elevation. There'll be cast stone header and window sills also. The exterior walls above the water table are going to have 3 coats of stucco finish, and I believe that will also be within the faux window area. And the roof is proposed to match existing slate, which is random with hard vein variegated green slate of varying thicknesses. And there are 3 different samples of that.
Right, it's not green slate, sorry, it's not, the existing slate is a blend.
Combination, right. So that's why you have 3 different samples, and I think that's probably answering one of my questions. The exterior trim is to match the existing, which is the Litchfield Gray Benjamin Moore color. And the rear addition, HBC really does not need to review that because it's not going to be visible from the public right-of-way. The new East Terrace for the new ADA entrance is going to mimic the same material and details that are existing for the North Terrace. So the cast stone balusters and railings will match the Haddon stone cast stone material and the railing system and headers. What will be new is the Julius Blonde steel railing, which is going to be added to the ramp area. The bluestone pavers are going to be new because I believe what's existing out there on the north side are brick. But I don't believe that's going to be visible from the public right-of-way. There is an existing window that will face out onto the new plaza. The intent is to remove that window and the shutters, use the existing window openings, and install a door which is going to match in the same style as the ones that face onto the North Terrace. The proposed door is going to be wood, and instead of 4 feet 2 inches, it's going to be 3 feet 8 inches. The pavilion is going to be on a concrete pad with fiberglass column covers, and it will have a flared roof eave similar to the main building. The slope portion of the roof is proposed at the copper standing seam, which there's a sample down here, and the low slope center section will be a K-NAR roof or an equal. And there is going to be a Hugo ceiling fan, which is going to be installed in the vaulted ceiling area. They have a variety of lighting. Sorry, I have here 3, but actually there's 4. And they're a combination of wall sconces, emergency lights, and step lighting. The other site improvement really that is something to talk about is that transformer. As many commission members will recall, this is pretty large. Do I have that dimension right? I have it 7 feet, 4.2 inches, is that correct? 6 feet, 4.2, okay. So it's about 6.5 feet wide. 6 feet wide?
6 foot by 7 foot wide, by 6 foot tall.
Okay, apologies. And then according to the spec sheet, there are 3 choices, but then there are other options of painting it a different color if that's approved. The proposed transformer is indicated to be approximately 35 feet from the building and 6.2 feet from the side lot line. And then the new ADA parking stall, as mentioned, is going to be behind the elevator. The variances, there's a D variance for FAR, which there's an existing nonconformity, and so the proposed is going to increase that non-conforming variance. And then there's 2 C variances, which is the minimum building setback because of the increase of the elevator location, and then there's accessory loading berth, which is required. So, Madam Chair, what I'd like to do is maybe give the applicant an opportunity to make their presentation and then come back to the comments, if that's okay.
That sounds great. Thanks for coming.
So, hi, I'm Maura McClintock, partner at Ford 3 Architects. I'm here with Bob Rodolfi, who is a club alumni and our legal representation for the evening, Holly Trump, who is the club manager, Bob Chittenden, our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection engineer, and Aaron Collins, project architect extraordinaire for our team. So I guess we, appreciate you hearing our application tonight. I think I'm just going to start with Holly very briefly talking about the club goals for the project.
Madam Chair, do you want to have all of them sworn in at the same
Yeah.
time?
Tara, good, thank you.
Sorry. Everyone that's going to testify, if you would raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this evening is the whole truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Could you just spell everyone's name so we have it for the recording secretary?
Sure. So mine is Moira, McClintock, MCCLINTOCK. Aaron Collins is ERINCOLLINS. Holly Trump, HOLLY. And then Bob Chittenden, BOB. Let's see if I can do this right. Bob will spell his own last name.
Chittenden, CHITTENDEN.
That was tricky. And then what was Holly's last name?
Trump, TRUMP.
We know that. Thank you.
Yep. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us and your efforts thus far to get us to this point. It's been probably a vision of over 15 years of thought and process, and in the last 2.5 years, it's really become something that is an important part of our clubhouse. Back in the day, as Moira will show you later, the clubs only had like 20 or 30 people in them, and now we are boasting of we're 202 members on a regular basis, plus we had another 100 in the springtime. So we're up to over 300 members in the club, and the university continues to up their class sizes. So we have to kind of keep up with things in 2 ways. Not only are we there to service and become a pass-through for a unique experience of watching all of these young souls come through, but we also are part of a process where what we do moving forward is falling into a category where we're all moving in savings of energies and things like that, and forward thinking. So like our whole energy base of what we're doing for that is about increasing our overall electrical, is to also put into pieces that are talking about car chargers and things like that. They're all essential pieces moving forward for the club, and we're kind of living on borrowed time where we are now with only 300 amps of service. So I guess the most important thing is I'm responsible for almost 4,500 people that have either been members or alumni, and it's weighs heavy on me that we continue to still have the same feel that the old girl from 1913 has. And she kind of speaks to us and tells us things that we should do to keep her in the same vein as we go forward into making her newer and better. We still want to keep that heart of what they experienced. I still have people from the 1950s and 60s that come in and tell the stories and want to see things that they will always remember fondly. But whatever we do to the exterior of the building, especially with historic preservation.
Thank you.
Okay. So Elizabeth gave a very, detailed overview of the project, so I'll try and move through my presentation quickly. Can you all see it on your screens, or are you going to have to turn around? Oh, okay. So before I got into really talking about what we're intending to do, I wanted to talk about the historic context of the
Before
building.
you get too deep into it, was this submitted as part of the application packet, or is this a
So this is
new
a
exhibit?
This is a new exhibit. We did submit. I mean, so because basically we had sent Elizabeth a presentation on Friday that she did put onto the website, but then once we received her memo, we updated that presentation in order to respond to some of her comments more fully. So can we submit this as a new exhibit?
Yes, I would just say we don't have to mark each slide individually, just mark it as one exhibit A1 consisting of 25 slides.
Okay. So this is Exhibit A1, 25 slides. So, I wanted to start with talking about the context of Prospect Avenue and the building site, since a lot of the comments we received in the HPO report dealt with some of those issues. So the Charter Club, their first building was actually in 1903, and they purchased an existent house on Prospect Avenue. It was renovated by David Adler to meet their needs at that time. When it was built, Prospect Avenue was a highly pastoral landscape. It looked out into the valley to the south, and then immediately to the north was, the university's football field. And this sort of instantly established what Holly was getting at, which was that these clubs came to serve not only the undergraduate students, but also the alumni, and really are a key mechanism for retaining alumni engagement in the university. In 1913, the club decided that the David Adler building, wait, let me go back 1 second, sorry. Just one small thing. You can see in the background here, this is the building that was the squash court. It is unclear to us whether that was a purpose-built building when the club moved into this property or they adapted an outbuilding. But so it was existent prior to the Melior Miggs building. In 1913, the club demolished the David Adler building and constructed the Melior Miggs building. Here's a view from around 1923. Again, you see the squash court building in the background. Other noticeable things to pay attention to are, the low hedgerow at the front, which still exists today, and the sort of more sparse plantings around the building. We went into I'm not going to go into the architecture of the building because we talked about that previously. So at this time, the surrounding area was still, as described previously, fairly open to the south. This is in the 1930s. The university did move the football field to the back, but you still have this sense of expansive landscape looking out from the building. You can see here in this aerial view, Melior Miggs had purposefully created this it's actually more of an L-shaped plan that is open to the southeast, allowing sun to stream into the building and the gathering spaces for the students. Here's that little squash court building. You can see the sites of all the clubs. They all had sort of the property line plantings and sparse plantings in the front and back, leaving central open areas for activity. So today, the landscape is radically different. This historic landscape no longer exists in any form. Particularly with the advent of the new School for Engineering and Sciences, the feeling of these properties is just completely changed. They are closed in. It's somewhat more intimate, but you do not have that connection beyond their site. So in thinking about our site development, we have purposefully tried to respect the architecture of the existing building and look at how to build upon it to meet the needs of the club. And these needs were really focused on access for both undergraduate students and for alumni. That you had to come up a flight of stairs to get into the building and then back down a flight of stairs to get to the rear yard, which is used for all sorts of events. Again, expanding the dining capacity. So currently, this wing is the dining room. And what they've had to do to meet modern food service needs is there's a kind of a great hall that's like a T, and you come in and all the food service equipment is lined up in that great hall because there is no place to put it, and most meals are self-service. This wing held what was originally the club room, and to meet the numbers of students and not have them wait too long, that room is now populated by tables. So this addition is really intended to provide a place for the servery equipment to move to restore that great hall as a space, and also get these additional dining tables out of the club room. Maintaining exterior space, which is a very important part of club life. This is the remaining foundation of the squash court. We're taking that from a zoning perspective, we're taking that impervious surface and sort of relocating it to the footprint of our open air pavilion. The pavilion is rotated to really take advantage of, opening to this space so that it can be used as a place for bands to play or other, if somebody's doing speeches during reunions, this is the central focal location. Then coming around to the east side, we have the elevator addition. This is the service side of the building. It also drops down from the street. We were able to fit in the ADA parking space, and this location is very convenient both for the kind of guest experience and for the club staff use. So these are just some street views of the existing conditions with these, looking towards where the transformer and the west accessible entrance will be, the front elevation, which will remain untouched, and then on the east side, looking down towards where the elevator addition will be located. You can see somewhat here the line of the C's buildings in the background. So I'm just going to go around the site and talk about each piece of the building. And again, what we really tried to do here was both respect the Secretary of the Interior standards for the, approaching a project such as this while keeping in mind the club's goals to have really a seamless feeling for their property. So we have the elevator addition, which does have some differentiation materials, the accessible entrance, which, while extending the use of the kind of historic building vocabulary, is using that in a different way and clearly reads as an addition to the building. You can see the pavilion in the background. And, just to sort of, not sure I have a choice. Okay, so starting on the west side, I know we have, so one of the questions when we first came to see you, there were a lot of questions about this transformer, and we have looked at it extensively, spoken with PSE&G, and there really, because of the service requirements of the transformer, there really is no other location on the site where it can be placed. This was actually a concession on their part. They wanted it up here. And so we have pushed it back, and it will be screened with a variety of, native shrubs and grasses. And, I don't know how much of you guys can all see this, but it's just interesting to also note, so it's being placed back here, which is on the flip side of Cloister's trash enclosure. This is their trash enclosure. You can also see in this view of Cloister that Cloister's electrical panels are directly on the front facade of their building. And, again, then back in the back, you see the new construction. So these are the trees. There were questions about which trees were being removed from the site. These trees that you see in the photos are the ones being taken down. They're primarily a collection of overgrown yews, and then there is one very large pine tree. So those will all be removed, new plantings introduced. So the new plantings are, so the number of trees that is being proposed is directly relates to the municipal tree replacement ordinance. And then we have, as I mentioned before, the kind of shrubs and grasses. I know there were some questions about the density of this, and, we can talk, it may be that we want to, the planting, I don't know if we want to discuss approving the concept of shielding these with shrubs and then come back in with a more detailed planting plan. That's something, I think, because it's, until the piece is dropped and we really see it in more detail, that would be like the club has been struggling with, okay, we know that these are the plants that we need to meet the ordinance requirements, but, there's a desire somewhat to finalize the placement as we get deeper into the project. So you can see the, kind of proposed trees being planted along the walkway back to the pavilion. And again, here's the current view with these, the west, that side is very blocked. And so just, in further thoughts about these plantings, there are a number of challenges in where to locate these new trees. So the rear of the lot, while they look like they have a big lot with a lot of open space, this portion belongs to the university, and they do not have free reign over what they do there. And then this side of the building is already heavily paved, and the club really wants to keep the center open for activities. They put up big tents at reunions. To have these trees out in the middle would become a functional hardship. The pavilion itself is a simple open air structure. There were some questions about the lighting for it. It's lit by downlights in the ceiling. The ceiling is elevated from the front beam line. So there'll be downlights in the upper ceiling and 2 ceiling fans that won't have the drop will keep them above that beam line as well. So the rear addition, and we have a kind of a small correction with the description of the extent of demolition for the rear addition. The rear addition, while sitting where the existing terraces are, to maintain that connection to the outside, it actually only requires the removal of this upper level balcony and the structure supporting it. The lower walls and spaces within them will remain. You can see the kind of pool room. That room on the inside has their pool tables. So it's the pool room. There, you can see the pool room exit and windows remaining. And then this back wall just gets subsumed by the addition. So the demolition is fairly minimal here. The rear additions. And then just coming around to the side with the elevator addition, it is, so as discussed, the grade drops down. You will only, if there were no plantings, you might only see a minimal portion of the stone below the water table. There is this existing trash enclosure here, and you can just barely see its corrugated roof at this point. So there were questions about this in the HPO report as well. So we added these images to give you a better sense. This area in red is essentially where the elevator addition sits, and it would be primarily blocked by this large pine. Just one note while we're here about the loading berth variance. So that is an existing non-compliant condition. We were informed we had to reapply for it, but we're not making any changes to the site that, take away something that was compliant. Right now, what happens is the trucks back down here and they unload and then they back out. It just doesn't meet today's contemporary standards. Service drive. And these are the materials you've seen down here with the addition of the slate. So the existing building slate is a blend of colors. We were proposing to continue that onto the roof of the elevator addition. The HBO report did, sort of ask about further distinguishing of materials there, and I think that's one area where the club might be open to using copper on that roof if there was a strong preference. These are details of the existent balustrade system. There are, and this is something we would want to amend our requests. There are 2 of these that are crumbling and in very poor condition on the front, and while we were having the new ones cast, we would like to replace those 2. The lighting. So we do have a memo. There were a couple of inconsistencies in the HPO report and in the materials submitted with our amended submission on March 6th, and that is in particular has to do with lighting. So Erin does have copies of a memo and cut sheets for some things that we would like to submit. I guess that would be Exhibit B.
Or A2.
A2, sorry. But, essentially we have visible from the street at the ADA entrance, there are 2 decorative wall sconces. These are meant to relate to, but not mimic, the sconces at the front door. The emergency lighting is up in the eaves of the building and is done with these very small spots. They're kind of like 6 inches, 6 by 6. They will be white to match the eave color. And then this is a fixture for some step lighting along the ramp. Again, it's shielded so that it will have a minimal impact on the site. And the exterior paint colors continue the existing. We have floor plans in here. I'm not going to go through these unless you have specific questions, just in the interest of everyone's time. But hopefully we have addressed some of the questions that were in the report within this presentation. If there's further questions, please let us know.
Thank you. So we are charged with asking ourselves, is the proposed demolition, the addition, the site improvement, and the alterations to the building, the site features, and the property, is it appropriate? Does it maintain the integrity of the historic structure? Is it within within the streetscape, within the property, and the spatial relationship with the other eating clubs and structures? Do the proposed improvements warrant supporting the variances? And the other question is about any sustainable.
I can talk about
Yeah,
that briefly.
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I omitted that. So that's for sustainable features, we are, part of the project is introducing a underground stormwater basin at the rear of the property to gather runoff water and keep it on site. We are, as stated, trying to minimize the new impervious surface. So, I think that while Elizabeth, the square footage of the addition does not result in a commensurate, increase to impervious surface on the site. And then all of our new plantings are native plants that should sustain. I think the other thing is what Holly touched on. So while the electrical upgrade is needed for the club, regardless of whether they do this addition or not, their electrical service is badly overloaded. And a little bit dangerous. Their main shutoff is actually fused in place at this moment. Yeah, we're all just kind of crossing our fingers. Everything's good. But the heating and the approach to the systems of the building is all done with electric heat. So we are looking at, utilizing energy in a sustainable fashion. There has been a little bit of additional space built into the service so that in the future, when the club has the funding, they can put some charging stations out by their existing parking and do things like that. So those are our sustainable features. And just one note about the side yard variance is also to keep in mind, I think it's very interesting in the description of the building from when the district was made, or these all went on the register, it notes that this is a 2.5-story building. And that's how it reads from the front yard. But because when you go down, the lower portion of the building is exposed on the east side to allow for service access. That's when we get into, needing that variance for the height of the building in addition to the setback.
Got it. All right, thanks. All right, I'm opening this up to commission members for questions, comments, and then in relation to its appropriateness to send it on to the zoning board, comments you might have. So I could just start. Roger, did you have anything?
I think Elizabeth asked this in her memo, but I was curious about the blocked off windows in the elevator.
Yeah, so we had suggested the faux windows as a way of breaking up the mass of the addition and, speaking to the rhythm of the fenestration in the building. It is a common feature of traditional architecture we call them blind windows. And, as a way when you didn't have the opening to kind of keep that rhythm of shadow that you might get.
Yeah, I thought that might be the answer. Also from the street, I think it's a hemlock or a yew, a fairly big tree, right, blocking the sight line from most angles facing the street. It may not be very visible at all.
Right, we are not anticipating that will be very visible at this moment. Obviously, in some point, that tree may meet its demise, yes. So.
And also the tree next to it is the only remaining elm on the street.
Oh.
And it's been nurtured and taken care of for a number of years now. And every year now it's getting a little healthier and healthier. So that one we're trying to make sure stays.
All right, thanks. Frida, do you have any comments?
I just wanted to clarify the cluster of trees that you're cutting down. Is that being cut down, are they being cut down to install the transformer?
They are there's one tree that is sort of coming down relating to the transformer. Most of them are being taken down to make way for the accessible patio.
I see. Can you go to that picture, please?
Sure. Oops. So, if you look, I think the pine, there really are, the pine is sort of, actually, okay, sorry. This is Michael, he's our construction manager. He's informing me, yeah. None of them come down for the transformer, it's for the accessible entrance and the pathway.
Okay.
Charlotte, did you have any comments or questions?
I really don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
David, are you?
I just have two questions. I want to understand about the, I guess we're calling them the faux windows in the elevator tower. Are they molded out of the synthetic stucco? And
So it's actually a recess, so there's basically, it's a recess in the plane, and they are finished in stucco. There is the header and the sill are actually painted polyash trim.
Okay, Thank you. And the only other comment or reaction I have is all good. You know, we don't get to talk about interiors, but it sounds like the work you're doing is allowing some of those great interiors to be reused as big, open, or appropriate spaces. And I think that's a very nice thing. And I think it outweighs any kind of concern I have about any demolition or covering up things in the back. I think what you're accomplishing is a great goal and
Thank you.
to be enjoyed by club members. Thank you.
Yeah, Elizabeth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I really appreciate the applicant coming back and addressing a lot of the comments that were in my report, so that was great because there wasn't a duplication of us talking about it. I have to say that the elevator in perspective really is very small in relation to an addition that can be viewed from the public right-of-way. Obviously, the addition in the rear is larger, but it's not visible, so that's not a subject that HBC is going to talk about. And in addition, that the elevator is pushed back, and so it's not in the same plane as the front. I think that recess helps it to, make it a secondary type of addition. So that's very helpful. And as I wrote in the report, the material of it being stucco versus the stone is a good alteration according to the Secretary of Interiors. And I appreciate that the applicant is considering a different roof material if HBC is inclined to, make that recommendation. So really, I think the only issue is that transformer. And I know that this was a topic that came up at concept review, and it's not something that you can actually control. But the question I have, which was presented at the concept review, is that we were told that every club is going to have one of these. And that's a concern, that every eating club is going to have a transformer like this. And I'm just wondering, is there any thought about maybe consolidating it between two
So-
properties, a shared one that could be?
We did ask whether that might be possible, and they said no.
Yeah, so we actually had asked a question. The utility company requires a dedicated transformer per building. The network electrically underground is maxed out. If nobody does any upgrades, there's no reason to do anything else to the clubs. But at this point, anybody that needs to draw more power will require a transformer. We reviewed numerous times on site with PSE&G to try to get this as concealed as possible. The driveway side, there's just no clearance to it. There's no way to get a truck in. They preferred to have it in the corner that you see it, right up against the road. They need to be within
yeah.
10 foot of a either paved or gravel area. And we pushed back because we did not want to see it up against the road, so it is pushed back as far as we possibly can. The shrubs screening it, you're not going to see it. You're going to see vegetation that will look like what's on the street. While there might be 3 different variations, there is no option from the utility company. They're going to provide what they're going to provide. We can't ask for a color. They're typically a green shade because they kind of meld in with the landscape that's around it.
Okay. So, and they are not interested in upgrading their primary line in the right-of-way?
No.
What are they doing for the new addition for the university that they put in? I mean, where are they drawing all that?
Probably, Yeah, I mean, it's, we don't have all those specifics.
Right. It-
Get sworn in if you talk.
So, I mean, that's what I look at down the road, I mean, we've had another eating club come in here where their issue was parking. I'm so thankful that yours is not visible from the right-of-way, that it was tucked in. You're using a impervious space that's already there, and you're redesigning it, and it's behind the elevator. So, that's wonderful. That a transformer is a big one. And, as a landscape architect, I can tell you that when you put plants in front of it, everyone always wonders what's behind it.
What's behind it.
Because you're screening. It's almost better not to try to screen it. I mean, I'm not saying that to do that, but I'm just saying it draws your attention to something that you're trying to screen?
Well, and I think one thing is, that we've talked a lot about is trying to, once it's dropped, to, make the screenings feel like an extension of this hedgerow in some ways, so that it doesn't feel like, it feels connected to what's on the site. And Holly has something she wanted to add.
It's kind of like with this whole thing, we battled for the last 2 years with PSE&G and actually formulated a pretty decent relationship. So it's kind of like the lion and the kitten. We're the kitten, and what the lion says goes. And we struggled trying to make this be as less obtrusive as possible and make it still be functional for our needs. And we are desperately needing it. And then also foresight, as I said, moving forward into thinking things a little bit more realistically in our world today. But I think with the landscaping, and like Moira said, that we really want to get it proposed,
integrate.
the landscape that's there, but I think we're a pretty classy group to try to get it to look like it's infused and then has some kind of purposeful line to it. I don't think anything that our architects or people or our engineers have done, we really are thinking about the overall well-being of the street and the overall well-being of the club itself. And I'm surely, at the end of the day, we have to answer to the higher authority, which to me is all my alumni. So if it doesn't look right and it looks out of place, it's all going to fall very heavy. And I think that we're very cautious and very careful because it is such a historic place.
Does the transformer come in any other dimensions? Can you get it lower and longer so we can actually no?
It does
Okay.
not. There's no color options. There are the different manufacturers that are about the same size. We can't make a request. The utility company's going to provide what they have available at the time.
Understood.
But the 3 different models would be the same color and would be the same dimension.
Just trying.
Very good question.
The club would obviously prefer it not to be there near their new beautiful entry either.
Well, what's very interesting about the Charter Club is that there really was not any changes to the original design. I saw someone over there had Clifford Singh's books, so I saw that, that we're like partners. But when I look at the plans that they had, it really has not changed at all, even the back.
Yeah.
So no additions, no alterations, so that's really great, and so I'd hate for this to be the demise of that original.
But again, I think, while it's going to be there and it will be shielded, it again is something, it's not necessarily permanent. It may be that 50 years, I expect I expect the building to have a much longer life than that transformer, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Understood. Well, maybe I could recommend to HPC to write in their memo to the zoning board that the HPC welcomes a landscape subcommittee to be formed to work with the final design with the applicant, if they agree to that.
Okay, all right. Other members, any suggestions for the applicant? And if not, I guess we would move to a motion. Okay, David?
So moved with the comment that Elizabeth just made. So moved with the comment Elizabeth just made.
So we're suggesting to the zoning board that it's appropriate and that we support the applicant for maintaining the integrity of the historic structure and its setting within the property, the streetscape, and the relationship with the other clubs.
And do we add in that it's regrettable that we're forced,
And-
everyone's forced to
and we'd
use
like-
this transformer dimension?
Right, and that we'd like to have a subcommittee help with the landscape after the transformer is plunked in there. Any other, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Frida seconds. All right, we'll go to a vote.
Mr. Shatskin?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Shore?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman?
Yes.
Chairperson Capizoli?
Yes. Thanks, you guys, for coming in. Really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. Much
you.
appreciated.
Great presentation. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for coming in. All right.
That's an interesting, I thought that was an interesting.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'd like to welcome back our wonderful applicant, the Princeton Nursery School. Yay! We always like to see you guys.
No, we're frequent flyers
You're
now.
getting to be a regular.
Thank you.
All right. So, Elizabeth, I know you wrote a report for this too. You want to just summarize it real quick?
Yes, I'll just start by kind of identifying the site. So the applicant is Princeton Nursery School, who has filed an application for preservation plan review for exterior building repairs. The property is identified as block 6906, lots 12 and 13 on the Princeton tax map with the address of 78 Lee Avenue. It's located in the R9 T-zone and situated on the south side of Lee Avenue between John and Ray Streets, with Princeton University's Merwick Stanworth Housing to its south. The property lies within a residential neighborhood within the Witherspoon-Jackson Historic District as identified on the zoning overlay map. This site is also in the District Type 2 Historic District, which is anything, the HPC reviews anything that is visible from the public right-of-way, any changes or alterations to a painted surface or a surface that is scraped down to an unpainted or pre-primed, pre-finished surface. And as HPC knows, and as the chair had mentioned, this applicant has come before us many times, and we're always so happy to see them here because we know that they're always doing a great job on their building, which is very important to this historic district. They did receive their funding money, and part of this work that they are doing is reflective of that funding to make these improvements to the exterior. So there is water damage that is being caused by cracks in the stucco and also within the areas where the trim and sill are. Some of that is related to the gutters and just the age of the building where it is time for it to be repaired or replaced. And so the work that they're looking for is to resurface the new stucco and repair or replace windowsills, trims, fascia, freeze molding, and half-round gutters. There are existing built-in gutters, but those will remain. All the finishes will match the existing. All existing sills, fascia, trims, soffits, or are proposed to be removed and replaced in kind and shall match existing profiles. The existing moldings, however, will be removed but replaced with poly ash with a painted finish. And all these molding profiles will be custom made to match those profiles. So the applicant is really coming here for their approval to do this work. They are very cognitive of the fact that the north facade, the street-facing facade, is the most important. So they have taken great care to retain any of the existing material on the windowsill or the window trim where possible. But with the site visit that the chair and I had made with the applicant and their contractor, we do see that there are some sections that will need to be replaced. The interesting thing about this building is that the trim and sill exposure is very minimal. So what they are doing is where they're replacing it, they're matching it to have the same profile as exists, so it'll be consistent with those components that are going to remain. And even though they have a very thin layer of stucco surfacing that they will be doing, they are going to feather it away from the window and sills where there is such a little exposure so that the water has positive drainage out to the exterior surface instead of going into the building. So with that said, I believe that the applicant continues to do a great job and conscientious about their building to make it as sustainable as possible, with the understanding of HPC's charge to, preserve the historic district and its importance along the streetscape. So, I always thank the applicant for all the work and effort they do, and I know that they also have a timeline for them to be able to use the money for their grant. So, I would say that this is an application that I feel the HPC would support, but turn it over to the applicant for them to make their presentation.
Thank you so much. It is really good to be back. I think I learned something every time. That was a learning experience. But I want to start just by thanking everyone. As I stepped into my role, our board and myself as the leadership at Princeton Nursery School, we're
I'm
really...
sorry, could you just state your name
Oh,
and
yes,
spell
yeah.
it for the
Oh,
record?
yes. It's Kemilola is my first name. Kemilola Leanna Johnke. It's Kemilola, Leanna, and then Jahnke.
Okay. And then, are you both going to be
Yes,
testifying?
we're both.
Okay. So you can both just raise your right hand?
Okay, just he needs to spell
Oh,
his
yes.
name.
Yeah, let's get his name as well.
Oh, I see. Joseph Weiss, Josephweeiss.
Okay, great. And if you can both just raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this evening is the whole truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as our leadership has really just embraced our history, this is a part of it. So really making sure that we have an understanding of uplifting the historic preservation in Princeton. And so thank you for contributing to our learning. Another thank you for the letter of support that allowed us to receive this funding. The Community Development Block Grant is actually a part of the federal funding that is at risk at this point. And so we are very grateful that we did receive the funding last year and are really hopeful that the funding like this continues through the federal funds. And then I also want to just thank Elizabeth and then Julie for visiting on the very, very cold day where we were able to walk through and really just combine our thoughts and thinking on this project. So I'm going to share a little bit of background as we lead up until getting this project started, hopefully next month, and then hand it over to Joseph to talk much more specifics in that expertise. And so in 2018, Princeton Nursery School, we were actually struggling financially. The board at that time and the leadership at that time were really determining, could we even stay here in Witherspoon Jackson? And so that was something I had shared in a previous meeting here with the commission, that our goal was really to stay, but there were two big factors that were preventing the leadership at that time from the certainty of whether we could. And the first reason was the cost of our historic building, the facilities, the maintenance, the day-to-day, and then the major projects that were on the plate of the leadership at that time were one of the big factors that helped them to think through whether we could stay there. And then the second is about 50% of our families actually live in Princeton. The other 50% come from the surrounding area. But of those families that are non-Princeton residents, there are groups of them that are former Princeton residents, primarily Witherspoon Jackson legacy students who used to live on Lee, on Birch Ave, and are coming back to Princeton Nursery School. Those two factors were, at that time, really helping the leadership to determine, can we stay or can we go? I'm very, very grateful that the leadership decided to stay. But because of COVID, it was a silver lining for us, where we were able to receive funding that allowed to contribute to our programming, allowed to contribute to our day-to-day operations, that did start to diminish a little bit in 2022. And when I joined that year, it really was an effort of the leadership from the board and myself to embrace our existence in Witherspoon Jackson, and not just survive, but really push to thrive there. And so we have received funding to take on major projects, $200,000 that we've completed. We actually will complete these projects at the end of this month, so it'll be very exciting. We've completed our roof, exterior, emergency exits, doors, staircases. We installed a security system that in other facilities, it's a given that you have a security system, but for us, it was really an initiative that we had to put a lot of funding into. And then the launch of a very small school library that I encourage you to come and just take a look at, that it has potential to grow. We received $230,000 partially from the Community Development Block Grant, partial funding from Princeton University that has committed to support us with these exterior efforts. And we received a unique fund of $80,000 for recognition of leadership at the school from the Princeton Area Community Foundation, which totaled $230,000 that we're going to be able to put towards this project. That has to do with the stucco, and the kids actually have a coloring sheet of the school, and so they color the school building many different colors, but to really revive the yellow stucco building that we have there. And then all of the, what I call exterior carpentry, the trims, soffits, moldings, and the casings. Since we applied for the funding, the costs have actually gone up, which we expected. It's been over almost a year since we have applied. And so there are two parties that are really waiting for the outcome of this meeting. Princeton University, who has committed to potentially supporting us even more if we are able to move forward with the project. And then the Community Block Development Grant, if they offer it in 2025, 2026, we would be able to apply for that funding as well. And then the other party that's also pending is the State Historic Preservation Office, which is seeking information about what the commission decides tonight. So in total, we've raised $430,000 for not just for Princeton Nursery School, but really what we see as for Witherspoon Jackson, to uplift both entities at the same time. We will apply for the Community Development Block Grant again to reimagine our interior spaces, very similar to the previous presentation, so that we can really serve as a community center, not just for Witherspoon Jackson, but the larger Princeton community as well. So our goal, as I mentioned, is not just to survive as we were doing in 2018 or to simply remain, but to really thrive. I'm a teacher, and so I can make do with any situation, and nonprofits, we do that as well. But as the leader at Princeton Nursery School, what I've really seen is you cannot have that approach with historic building. It really has to be a proactive solution, and then also long-term solutions, where when people ask me about our handyman taking on different projects, I say, you're looking at her. And so we really want to make sure that we have longer, better solutions than myself. And so the repairs that we've actually taken on in the past year have shown us that larger damage has happened because of the delay in the repairs. And one example is due to the delay in repairing our roof, we uncovered some larger damage that Joseph was able to consult on, and it really led to more funding needs. And so what we're seeking right now is to utilize this unique moment where we do have funds to address the building concerns and address them in the right way. So that is a lesson we learned that we said we only need to learn once. And our application today asks for your approval to allow us to repair our spaces in these long-term solutions rather than a Band-Aid approach, which are a favorite of the kids at the school. They love the Band-Aids, but we're going to avoid them here. And that really meets our mission of serving students and families while uplifting the rich history of Witherspoon Jackson and Princeton Nursery School. And we kindly ask for your support to reach the school in approving our application for resurfacing our yellow stucco building, and we ask for your consideration for approval to fully replace the sills, fascia, trim, and soffits in kind, and to replace the molding in polyash. Those will likely be the last technical words you hear from me, and I will pass it over to Joseph Weiss to share more.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all. Joseph Weiss. I'm also a neighbor of the nursery school, and I want to say that I really enjoy incredibly being a neighbor of this nursery school. I sit in my backyard and just hear the banter of the children playing in the nursery school, and it gives me great joy. So thank you for what you do. You all have the application packet, I believe. I'm happy to answer any questions, but in general, correct me, you can't see the screen, or is
Oh,
that?
we can see it now.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, we
Okay,
can.
great.
We
Okay,
can.
that's fixed, okay. Okay. So this is the north elevation, the street elevation. There's a lot of windows in this building. There's like 66 windows, I believe. And the plan is to, first of all, resurface the stucco. The stucco is, it's a cement stucco. We don't really know exactly what the substrate is behind the cement stucco, but it's in okay condition, but there's a lot of areas where it is extremely distressed, cracked, large gaps. So the first step would be to repair that surface, and then to go around the entire building and resurface with an acrylic stucco top coating system, which consists of a mesh layer. It's a nylon type mesh that gets adhered to the existing surface after that's cleaned. And then it gets bedded with an acrylic stucco mix and then top coated with the finish coat, of which you can choose the finish. We would choose a finished texture that matches what is there now. It's not quite a fine texture. It's I don't know the term actually for what the texture is. I can tell you that in looking at the product that we're proposing, which is made by Sika, it's called a Sahara finish. So it's not quite a fine texture. It's just a little rougher. The total surface added would be about 3/32 to 1/8 of an inch. So that's one major component of what we're proposing. The next is to replace all of the rakes, the fascias and soffits all the way around the building. Those are painted wood material. They're very distressed, in some cases completely rotten due to leaks from water drainage running off the roof. On the front of the building, there's two sections of the roof on the east wing here and on the west wing that have a half-round gutter. We would be replacing that. All other locations, as we move around the building, this is the east side. This has a built-in gutter. And then as you move around the south of the building, here's the south elevation. All these roofs have built-in gutters. So we're replacing all the soffits, fascia, rakes, trims, the returns here, all with new trim. The trim consists of a fascia, a soffit, and then several pieces of molding. All the fascia and soffits would be replaced with a wood product. Its trade name is Windsor One. It's an impregnated finger joint. It's an engineered wood product, and it has a great deal of longevity to it. I want to point out that one of the considerations in choosing the materials, while we understand the need to, preserve as much as possible the building, I feel it's important to be cognizant of the financial expense related to doing these repairs. And so I've really tried to choose or help the nursery school choose materials that they can put up here once and then not have to worry about for at least a decade or more. In the case of this trim material that I'm proposing, although it's not, it is an engineered wood product, it has like a 30-year warranty on it. So the idea here is that the school can invest in this improvement once, and then they'll be done for a long time. And I think that really helps to, make sure that the school can afford to stay there longer. So that's kind of what's guided my choice of materials. Let me go, there's a detail. So you can see, these are the soffit and fascia details, and there's several pieces of custom moldings. There's a shingle mold at where the fascia meets the roof, and then there's a cornice mold where the soffit meets the vertical wall. Those would be custom milled polyash material so that they would match exactly the trim that's already there. So that's the second component of the project. The next component are all the windows, which are also rather distressed, and as Elizabeth mentioned, they have a very small rebate relative to the stucco surface. In some cases, it's actually a negative. When I say rebate, I mean the difference between the face of the trim going around the window and the face of the adjoining wall. And in some cases, it's actually a negative rebate, and that creates a water management problem. So as Elizabeth mentioned, we would be scraping some of the stucco substrate down to get a better rebate. But in all cases, bear with me one moment, I'll get to the front elevation. On the front here, about 50% of the windows need to have the trim replaced, and we would be replacing all the trim in kind with this engineered Windsor One material and matching the profiles exactly as to what's there. The portico here, the entry portico would stay the same. We're not actually replacing the trim on that. It's in very good condition. It would just be repainted. The same is true of this little awning or roof over the basement entry. That would be remain, no change to it except repainting it. There's a vent in the gable here. That would be remain and just be repainted. But all the windows on the front here, you can see there's all the ones that have this hexagonal note. I can't quite read the number, but it's 12, thank you. Those are the ones that I've identified as absolutely need to be replaced, and we would be replacing the sill and the trim going around, and then the cap. There's a cap at the top of the window. I actually think this might help. This is kind of a detail. So you have the trim, this is the cap here, and then there's the sill piece. So those would be replaced, again, matching the profiles. Some of the windows, the wood is in okay condition and could be refinished. I have argued, just to be frank with everyone, I think we would like, or I would like, to get the permission to replace all the windows in the north, because I think one of the things, again, going back to the cost of this, doing this project, is there's a lot of overhead associated with just getting scaffolding set up and getting the contractor on site to do the work. And although we can repaint some of these windows, and that's what we're showing, at least 50%, and I'm speaking now of the north elevation, the street elevation, at least 50% absolutely have to be replaced, because the wood is so degraded that it's really not, would not be a viable substrate, in my opinion. But of the ones that are remaining, the wood is okay, and it could be scraped and refinished. But I do think it would make economic sense for us to be able to replace those at this time too, if the commission would allow us to do so. Because that way, the school can be sure that they'll get a much longer life out of that repair, as opposed to if they repaint, they will be back there in about 4 to 5 years to repaint again. Because when you're dealing with even though the wood is in reasonable condition, when you come back and repaint it, it's not going to last that long, in my experience, because it's really, we're not scraping it down to the bare wood. We're just doing scraping off the loose paint and repainting it, and adhesion is kind of a problem when you deal with that condition. That's just one other consideration. As we move around the east, here we are replacing all the trims around the windows. There was a question in Miss Kim's report, about some additional crown moldings on some of the windows. The typical window in the north elevation just has a square cap, and that's the top piece of the window. There are about 4 windows on, I think 5 windows that have, in addition to that cap, a crown molding at the top. And we thought it would make sense to just create a more unified appearance as you move around the building and eliminate that cornice molding. There's only these 5, and then there's a few in the back, and just use the same detail that we're using in the front all the way around the building. So that was the question about the removal. There's a note about specifically to remove the cornice cap molding. Going around to the back, we're proposing to replace all the window trim and sills. And then these are the flanking walls of the back. I'm sorry, I meant to get to the west elevation. This is the west elevation, thank you. And again, we're replacing all of the window trims and sills on the west elevation. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right.
If I've missed anything.
Thank you. Really appreciate your presentation here. I'll just go one by one. Roger, did you have any questions, any comments?
No, I think it's a great project. To me, the only outstanding issue is what was just raised, whether we would be willing to allow replacement of all the windows on the north elevation, which makes sense to me. I mean, I think it's going to look exactly the same. And I think it just makes more practical sense.
Okay. Frida, did you have any comments on that?
Well, not really. My questions were about the windows. I don't know if oh, it is on. Can you hear me? Yeah. So my questions were about the windows. Did I understand you correctly that about 50% of them need to be replaced, you said?
Yeah, speaking about the north elevation.
Only on the north elevation?
Only on the north elevation.
I see. Okay.
We had discussed this previously with both Ms. Capizzoli and Ms. Kim, and we had been told that all the other elevations, which have minimum visibility from the streetscape,
Yeah.
we could replace all of the trim there. So the only ones really, in my mind, that are in question are about 50% of these on the north elevation.
Okay, thank you.
So how do you feel
I think
about
it's
that?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's expensive, people, yeah, no, it makes sense.
So you think the replacement of the north would be good?
Yes,
Okay,
I do.
all right. Charlotte, did you have any questions, comments? And how do you weigh in on the window replacement?
I weigh positively in on that. I mean, just seems like now is the
sorry,
proper
I
time
can't
to
hear
do
you.
it.
Can you get closer to your mic? Thanks.
Does that, it says it's on?
I guess you got to get closer.
Okay. No, it seems like the proper time to replace all of them. I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I really commend you for just your commitment to the historic building and to the neighborhood and to taking advantage of, all the technical advances to do this sensitively. And it just feels like you've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's. So bravo. I hope this moves quickly through construction and you get to the interior too.
Thank you.
Thank you. David?
I like the project. I guess my concern, and you guys have already stated it, is what on earth happens with funding, and you get far less money or no money for what your plans are. I assume that you would probably have to rethink what you want to do and probably have to revisit us, but I'm hopeful that everything goes through smoothly. Thank you for the very careful evaluation of the building and the approach you're taking.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
the funding question concern too, because it has been front of mind for us throughout the whole project. So we have scenario A, scenario B, how do we really take this on? And we're very grateful that the university and others have been receptive to our appeals. But the funding concern is very real for if even our current funding through the federal funds that were already distributed, we're not able to reimburse ourselves until it's approved, until the freeze is unfrozen. And so it's definitely a concern, but our board, and then we've really shared with others too, that we'll have a solution. And no one will be happier that the construction is done than the kids. Because they have been wearing little plastic construction hats, playing indoors. They're going to be excited to go back out.
How cute. All right. So with that, any other comments? Okay.
Thanks,
Leland.
Julie. Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't say a little something about being a native son here in Princeton and how grateful I and the people in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Could you use the mic, Leighton? We can really, it's a little hard to hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, I would be remiss, as I said, if I didn't say something. Being a native son here in Princeton and being born in the neighborhood, it was a little chilling to hear you say a few years ago that the question was whether we were still going to have the Princeton Nursery School here in Princeton. The good news is that through your vision, your ability, your leadership, and your grit, your true grit, that you have really graced the town of Princeton with your presence here, your entire family's presence, the work that you have done on behalf of young people at the Princeton Nursery School to keep history alive, and not only to keep it alive, but to have it growing at the rate it is growing. I also want to acknowledge Joseph Hobart Weiss, who's a neighbor in the Witherspoon-Jackson neighborhood, who is helping you in this regard. Hats off to you, sir, for what you're doing. But I also, want to just end by saying, Leanna, you are really something special. And while resources abound here in Princeton, the reason you are getting so much attention and so much financial help and support is because leadership is indeed everything. So my message to you is thanks, for everything.
That was great, Leighton. All right, on that note, is there a motion?
Sure,
Okay.
I'll move to approve the plan, including the replacement of all the north-facing windows.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
I second.
All right, Frida seconds. Elizabeth, you want to take the roll?
Hold on, I gotta find my sheet.
Okay.
Here it is. With that motion, I just ask, is the profile of the trim going to be consistent with the other? Because I know that it was projected a little bit, so it'll all be the same, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and then I assume the drawings will also be updated for final sign-off to reflect
Sure,
that?
yeah, I can
Okay.
do that, yeah.
All right. Mr. Shatskin?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Shore? Yes. Ms. Friedman? Chairperson Capizzoli?
Yes, thank you so much for coming in, and all the best. I mean, we love you guys, but we hope we don't have to see you again.
The
So you
feeling's
get it
mutual.
done.
But please do, we invite you to come down to Liev to visit us at Princeton Nursery School. We just celebrated 96 years, and we also celebrated the birthdays of our eldest alumni who turned 95 and 94 years old. It was the sweetest birthday parade that we did around with this.
Wow,
It will
the
happen
birthday
again next year.
parade.
So please do.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Thank you all very
so
much.
Thank you. Because this is, right, this is us. Yep, stays here. We're the final call. All right, thanks again. All right, we're going up with 7 Green Street. Come on down, the price is right. And you're going to recuse. Okay. David is recusing on this one. Yeah, he's working with Annabelle. Hi, Judy. All right, welcome. Yeah, it's chilly. All of a sudden.
Absolutely frozen.
Yeah. So welcome. This is application of Annabelle Radcliffe Trenner to replace, alter, and other building improvements for a historic preservation plan review, 7 Green Street. This is just us. It's not going to the zoning board. Nope. That's refreshing. Like the last one. And so Elizabeth did write a report, and maybe you want to just summarize that, Elizabeth? And by the way, David Shore is recusing himself on this one. I'm just announcing that.
Okay. So the applicant, Annabelle Radcliffe Trenner, has filed an application pursuant to the Princeton Land Use Code for improvements to the existing house on the property. The property site is identified as Block 17.02, Lot 56 on the Princeton tax map with an address of 7 Green Street. It's located in the R4B zone and situated on the north side of Green Street near the intersection of Witherspoon Street. The property is in a residential neighborhood in the Witherspoon-Jackson Historic District, as identified in the municipal zoning overlay map. This property also is classified as District Type 2. Again, preservation plan review is anything that is visible from the public right-of-way, and any paint or adding other surface coloring to an unpainted surface, or adding pre-primed and pre-finished material. Within your package, you saw a property inventory from Weiss Preservation for this property. As identified in that inventory, it says that the building on the site was constructed circa 1840 and is considered one of the oldest houses in the Witherspoon-Jackson neighborhood. It is a small two-story rectangular-shaped house with a wood-sided gable roof. There is a square concrete block exposed end chimney that sits on the east ridge. The siding is unpainted and with replacement cedar. The house is 3-bay with 1/1 replacement windows over a 3-part picture window and door on the first floor. There are no windows on the gable ends. It has a full-width 2-story rear extension with a shed roof, and there are single windows on each floor on the sides of that addition and the rear elevation. And the rear elevation also has a back door. The window on the first floor on the east elevation is a small twin window that's proposed to be replaced with a smaller square twin window. So the applicant, the improvements to this house are pretty simple. The applicant is a new property owner. She had received administrative approval for a condenser because she is living at the property and also doing renovations, which is pretty tricky and uncomfortable. And she started this in the wintertime, so it was important for her to have some type of heat within there. So we were happy to help her out with that. So the applicant is replacing all the windows on the street-facing property. I believe that they're going to be 6 over 6, is that correct? And she had included in her package, she had done a lot of research, and people who know Annabelle knows that she is a historic architect, so she always brings a lot of great information and a lot of great research, which makes my job a lot easier, because then I don't have to do it. But I'm going to defer to Annabelle to really talk about the custom windows that she's having made for this house and the glass, which to me is very interesting. And she's also having the house painted with a special linseed oil paint, which I think that I know who that is because somehow he was on LinkedIn and he was sharing some information, but maybe not the same person. But in any case, she's got some great, and this is unusual for a property owner to have so much knowledge on historic properties and to want to do it in a way that HPC would embrace. So anyway, I believe that she's doing a wonderful job, and welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Oh, please go ahead, Annabelle.
We'll
yeah.
just, can you state your name and spell it for the record?
This is Annabelle Radcliffe Trenner, Annabelle, Radcliffe, Radcliffe Trenner, Trenner.
Okay. And then if you would raise your right hand, do you swear that all the testimony you're about to give this evening is the whole truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to have joined this historic neighborhood, and as a preservation architect who works on preservation projects all day, every day, including now coming home to my own preservation project, which I'm probably going to regret, but I love. I love this little house, and in fact, in the process of purchasing the house, I and the previous owner have set an easement on the house, so it's not permitted when it gets sold, when I move on to the graveyard that I can see from my window, it will be preserved. Nobody's allowed to demolish it. And we made that decision very deliberately because we both wanted to honor her mother, who lived there for many years and did really good preservation work there. And I, too, want to preserve the house and keep it for future generations in its same size and scale. So there is an easement. I did attach the easement to the initial application so you could see what that easement is for. Really, the project is pretty simple. We have in the house evidence of the mortise and tenon framing, including the windows, the 2 windows that were there that formed 2 of the 3 bays. There are 3 windows above, and there are 2 windows and a door below. Historically, that's what was there. There was a large viewing window put in, which has now compromised the beam. There's large timber framing in the house, which is really quite wonderful. All hand-hewn beams, all diagonal bracing on the corners. So we've put a lot of that back. Found all kinds of fascinating things that I am in the process of starting a blog on, which will be called Green on Green. So the proposed work is to make, I'm fortunate because I have a lot of connections in the master carpentry field, and so I have a wonderful firm in Trenton who are going to make the 6/6 true divided lights from the period. Janet Foster did extensive research on the windows, whether it should be a federal-style window. This was very much a vernacular house. It was not elaborate, and we believe that the first windows on the house were 6/6, although we don't have any evidence of that. But from a scale and the sizing of windows of that period of circa 1840, we know that the house was there in 1852 from the map, the Bevan map. So I think we're pretty confident from the glass manufacturing size of the period that these were 6/6 windows, not 4/4, which was a slightly later Georgian style, which came into about 1860. You see that. And so I asked a friend of mine, Janet, and she produced this wonderful research, which I hope you've shared with everybody. She's a dear friend and a very successful and prominent architectural historian on the Sites Council for the state. So she suggested that 6/6 was appropriate. I then went into some research on muntins and muntin profiles and have selected a muntin profile that's in keeping with the period. So the glass that I'm proposing to use is something called histoglass, and it is a custom-made insulated historic glass. It's a cylinder glass system, so it's a poured glass system. We don't make it in this country. Pilkington has something, but it's had a lot of problems with it and a lot of failure with the glass. So this is insulated. It has quite a good insulation factor, which I'm very keen on. Everything in the house now is electric, with one exception of a gas furnace. So I wanted to really go to electric, go to clean energy, sustainable selection of materials. So the histoglass will have to be imported from England. I can't get the glass until I've made the muntins, so and made the frames. So we'll do that first, and we'll have a temporary glass window there until we can do that. The framing needs to be repaired fairly urgently because it has a significant sag in the framing. So that's the proposed true dividing light windows that are going to be made. The sash will be slightly thicker, but the muntins will hold the character because the glass is very slightly thicker than traditional glass, and that's one of the appeals for it, and that's why it's so popular in Europe and is used a lot. The paint that we're using is a linseed oil paint. I believe very strongly in changing to linseed oil paints. They got a very bad rap as lead paints, with lead white pigments being used and lead red pigments being used. But now these pigments can be zinc oxide and other pigments. So there's a company in the UK called Bruns. They make very high quality linseed oil paints. I've given a number of presentations. In fact, if you go to the conference for the New Jersey Preservation Conference, we're giving a paper with Michael Bruns, who is a conservator from the UK, and he makes these paints, and they're beautifully made. They use traditional historic pigments, and all the paint colors that they have in the collection are all based on historic pigments resources. We don't have any research or knowledge of what the window colors were. All the windows were replaced with 2/2 lights that we currently have. So I made the decision to pick a green. It's Green Street, so it seemed appropriate to go pick a green. I mean, it could have been a red. And that will involve the frames around the windows, which are all cedar, and the windows themselves, and they'll be, I think they're going to be cedar. We're having a conversation about that for the windows. But they'll all be painted with the linseed oil paint. And the lovely thing about that is I'll never have to repaint them again, because linseed oil paint really lasts forever, as anybody who's removed lead paint, as I have been doing for a while now, inside the house will know it's incredibly resilient. And basically, it'll just need a linseed, you can just use linseed oil to touch up, and that brings back the color. So it's a really good way of preserving. So I'd love to see more people using linseed oil paints. The problem is you have to be on bare wood to do that, and I'm very fortunate in that the house was not painted, and it's a cedar house. I'm not going to paint the clapboard at the moment. I have no intention to do that, just the trim around the windows and the window sash themselves. And there's a few vents that are going in for a few, and some lights, a small path light, and then on the back, 2 more lights. The existing front door light I've just restored. We were able to rewire it and restore it. And we managed to move the electrical to the side, which I was thrilled about. So the meter is now on the side, which was great. So I think that covers pretty much everything.
Well, I think this is going to be a laboratory of preservation that many professionals will be stopping by to check it out.
Well, you're all welcome to come and see it. It's a wonderful little house.
I'll go again down the line. Any questions? Roger, any questions, comments?
No, I think it's a good project. What's going on the east side of the building? Were there...
The east side, yes. The east side has a sort of contemporary chimney which was put on, which is sort of now abandoned. I've got 2 small brown low-level vents for the new high-efficiency Navion direct heater that I've got for the hot water radiators. And then there was a modern contemporary window on the side that was actually sort of falling apart. And that is just being shortened slightly. It was about 3'6". There's a center structural post, so I'm leaving that in place, and have shortened the windows to 2 foot square each on each side of that post.
Are you changing the second-story window at all?
No, I'm not on the rear of the building. I'm leaving them. I was hoping to change them all to 6/6, but I decided at the moment, based on the amount of money I've spent, that I would leave them as the 2/2s. So those will get repaired. They're going to get new glazing, linseed glazing or putty, and then they'll be painted with linseed oil paint again.
I asked because it is, it's visible from the street.
It is, yeah.
It won't be matching the...
Well, that's the 1900 edition, so that's the later addition to the house on the rear. So that's why it's appropriate to leave those windows. The only 1840 windows are on the front of the house.
Okay, understood. I mean, I looked around the neighborhood, and the windows are all over the place.
I know they are.
You have the horizontal 2/2s.
Yeah, the Italians came in. I think they just put these windows everywhere. You see them everywhere. And I think they were sort of 50s. Some salesmen did very well in Princeton on windows.
And Annabelle, you do have one small light on the east side too, right?
We do, yes. It's a very small little path light. It's about 3 foot high.
Okay, thanks. Frida, do you have any comments?
No, I don't. I think it's a good project. It's interesting, very interesting project, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Charlotte, anything from you?
No, only compliments.
Thank you.
I mean, I really can't wait. What a difference that's going to be with those windows. And then you're leaving the wall surface is going to remain natural
It's
wood?
natural cedar, yeah, so I'm going to
Yeah.
leave it. There was a question Elizabeth asked, actually, in the letter that she sent me, which was about the front door. So the historic original front door is still in place, and I'm keeping that. But in front of that, prior to me moving in, there was a full glass door, so you can actually see the historic door. I am going to paint the green linseed oil paint on that natural finish of that. It's really a storm door, but it's really the front door now. And I am going to paint that, the linseed oil green as well, because it's starting to weather. And wood, cedar does very well, but this isn't cedar, so I think it would be better to protect it and put linseed oil paint on it and do that in green as well.
Right. Elizabeth, do you have any other questions?
Not as far as the review of the application. I do have a question about the window glass that you're using. Is that thickness, just from my own information, is that thickness slightly thicker than you might find with a double pane, or?
Oh, no, it's thinner.
Oh, it's thinner, but a little bit thicker than a single
Yeah.
pane? Okay.
All right, well, it really sounds terrific. If there aren't any other comments, would someone like to make a motion? Okay, Charlotte, thank you. Is there a second? Roger? Okay, I guess we'll go to the vote.
Mr. Shatskin?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Friedman? Chairperson Capasoli?
Yes. Thank you
you.
so much for coming in, and
Well,
best
thank
of
you.
luck with the
I'm-
project.
I'm thrilled
It's
to be in the
gonna be
neighborhood. I'm really
terrific.
very happy to be there, so
Really,
you're all
really
welcome
great.
to visit.
So don't go everyone yet. We have one concept review. I guess, Tara, if you need to get going, I think,
You don't need me for this one?
I don't think so.
This is just a concept, you don't need a memo.
Yep, right, we're not going to have a resolution or a memo or anything. It's just a concept review.
Not that,
I know you're busy.
not that I don't love being here, but.
I know you got that memo to get out really quickly. Oh, yeah, I know. I know, right? Oh, you'll see him again.
Good, how are you, Elizabeth?
Hi. I apologize. I didn't actually think that they were coming with representation, so I didn't copy them.
It was a last minute
Get you that memo over, and everybody have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night. Thank you. All right. So welcome and thanks for coming in. We love concept reviews, really. I mean, they're the best. So we don't have a report or anything. We'll just hand it over to you and let us know what you want to do.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Ryan Kennedy from Stevens & Lee. I'm here with Sandy and Jim and their architect, Dan Ward, to my right, to talk about their home at 8 Evelyn Place. Very interestingly, to get to this point, and I'll echo your sentiments, Madam Chair, that we very much appreciate the opportunity to get some feedback on the project. From the outset, I'll say it's quite an interesting, both their home itself being half of a historic structure, and I'll say that from talking with the zoning office, our expectation is that, following the comments here, we'd come back with an HPC application, but what they have planned is as of right and does not require any variances, which did take a lot of thinking, because ultimately, as it turns out, a half of this structure, which they own, is a single-family house, technically, and entitled to have an ADU with it as well. So the program here that they're looking to talk about is to connect their existing freestanding garage with the breezeway so they can get to there without the being in the elements. We think that that's not visible at all from the street, but we'll talk through that. Adding a small carport to the side rather than building a bigger garage or something more obtrusive to allow for their third car to be out of the elements, and then staged behind that an ADU for they unfortunately, as you'll hear, they had a bit of an experience of what it's like to have accessibility needs in this property, and as it turns out, it's really not set up for that, and it would be quite invasive to try to set it up for those purposes. So, Jim, Sandy, you want to just quickly introduce yourselves and explain, your thinking and need for the project?
Maybe I'll start. So, James Beslity.
They've got them, right?
I don't know if I need to be sworn in or anything like that.
No.
Not for concept.
Oh, yeah, because it's concept review,
Okay,
so
good. And my wife Sandy, who I guess I do need to give the credit for the purchase of this home about a decade or so ago. It was not in very good condition, but I think that she showed that it had tremendous potential. We did go through Historic Preservation Commission with regard to the renovations, And we've now come to a point where I happen to have an elderly mother who lives in a townhome on Long Island, multi-story townhome, who is no longer able to get up and down the stairs, and we need to find a place for her to live going forward. So we came up with this notion of constructing this ADU on the property. And interestingly, at some point, didn't want to do this so much. I thought maybe we could have my mom move onto the first floor of the existing 8 Evelyn Place. And I think Ryan alluded to an unfortunate situation. Recently, I've had major back surgery, and I've been living on the ground floor and seeing what it's like to live on the ground floor with a small half bath and trying to get around there. And for my expectation is that it would be impossible for my mother to live in that situation. There's no way to expand the bathroom to make a full bathroom. So that convinced me all the more that we needed to construct this ADU. And I felt like we had the land, as Ryan pointed out, we don't need a variance. I happen to be a lawyer myself, so I looked at the ordinance, and it seemed to me that this is the perfect type of situation that Princeton municipality would expect an ADU to be constructed. So I don't know, Sandy, if you'd like to add anything to that?
Well, the other thing I just would point out is that my wonderful mother-in-law lives 3.5 hours away from us. So as she's been getting older and we've been going out to Long Island, Eastport to visit her, it's almost a hardship on us to have to be in traffic for 3.5 hours one way and then 3.5 hours traffic coming home. And we do have caregivers for her, but the other hardship is that, you know, when they have lives, these women, and when they can't make it, it's like, how can we run out there? So I really want her to be right next to us, and it is unfortunate that she can't live in my house. It just is not possible. It would be very uncomfortable for her. But this ADU would give her her privacy. It would give her her own things around her. And it would make the last years of her life, I think, you know, very happy. And so that's why we're doing this.
Okay, great, thank you.
So Jim and Sandy, we'll go through a couple of slides to orient the board a bit. We're looking here, the arrow points to your house, and that purple polka dotted area is the Juddtown Historic District? Yep.
Yes.
Then looking next to the neighborhood view, you know, interestingly, often when we do these oblique satellite sites shots, the lot lines accidentally cut through, just like through a camera trick through a house. Here, that actually does cut through the building. So that left side in blue is your existing home with the garage that we're talking about?
That's right. And the ADU would go behind that garage.
And then just briefly, so the right side of the house, though, your neighbors that you share a party wall with, that's actually a 2-unit as well.
That happens to be a legal 2-family dwelling because they have enough frontage on Evelyn Place to have that, yes. There's 2 units there.
All right, so I know you guys know a bit about the history. You want to just take the board briefly through some of the information you know about the structure?
I'm happy to share with it. Over here, looking at the house, it happened to be the first women's college in New Jersey. It was for a brief time a coordinate school for Princeton University. I put in the Wikipedia link there if you wanted to take a look at it. And it's interesting to me politically. Barbara Boggs Sigmund lived there for many years, and she was the mayor of Princeton from 1983 to 1990. And the dining room, I believe, is a place where a lot of decisions were made for the township. As I mentioned earlier, we bought the home in 2014. Did a pretty significant renovation to maintain the historical character of the home, and also updated it for modern living. And I mentioned that the main level has this half small bath. Not easy to even get into the house there, again, because of my unfortunate surgery recently, I've noticed I've had to climb up and down stairs just to get into the house on the areas that are accessible, which would be very, very difficult for my mom. So just somewhat surprisingly, almost an acre of land in downtown Princeton. So it struck us that it would be almost a waste not to try to take advantage of some of the land there. I think that the commission's probably aware because not too long ago they approved a much smaller lot for a much larger construction. A different situation, but I'm just pointing out how land is at such a premium in that area. Our neighbor, as a matter of fact. And then I already discussed the need for my mom. But now turning to the view, it's interesting when you look from the circle. I mean, you can barely see the garage, which can be seen. So obviously within the jurisdiction of Historic Preservation Commission, but you can see the garage that was constructed. From that point of view, it's the breezeway that we're planning to connect the main residence to the garage. You could not see that from the street. And then the distance that we're looking at there is about 110 feet from the street. Again, we're very mindful of the importance of maintaining the integrity, the character of this neighborhood. You know, I really enjoy living there. I happen to be a assistant football coach at Princeton High School for the past 5 years, and we actually made the playoffs this past year, and I'm looking forward to continuing in that role as I continue to stay in this home. So it'd be great to have my mom actually come to a game once we complete this ADU. So we're looking forward to having another winning season, you know, in the coming year.
So on the right, the blue arrow, that's the approximate location of the connecting breezeway, and then I'll just kind of circle here, but that behind the garage is where the ADU would be located.
And this is, we've asked to have this additional carport added to the garage. The main reason that you see is Victor the Volvo, which is a 1997 Volvo GLT wagon. That's my sort of pride and joy. But you can see poor Victor is struggling out there in the snow, not being being subjected to the elements. So we were hoping that we could get some sort of coverage for Victor by allowing the carport to be connected, set back a bit to the existing garage.
And then just a couple of points that we've probably already made before we get to the architectural points, but our expectation, our plan is to have the breezeway connected, get them out of the elements, but not really be visible from the street. The carport to get the car essentially partially out of view and tucked back, but out of the elements with a less obtrusive treatment than a new garage or an expanded garage. And I believe you got some plans from a sustainability perspective for the ADU?
Yes, so these are Sandy's plans, but I'll run through them really quickly. I mean, we're very interested in either solar panels or shingles. We're not going to have any gas there. We're planning on having a heat pump. It'll be completely use of electricity. And, you know, we're actually hoping that this will be a relatively maintenance-free home that, you know, can be enjoyed comfortably by my mom.
Next, we do have our architect, Dan Ward. I don't, doesn't need to be technically sworn in, but you feel free to give the board your credentials. I'm sure they're familiar with them and well.
Yes, I have appeared before this board before. I'm an architect licensed since 1980, believe it or not. And I'm licensed in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Bermuda. We do a lot of work in and around Princeton, Hopewell, Pennington areas. So,
and I'll keep up on the screen for them the site plan that we put together, but why don't you take them through the program?
Sure. as Ryan said earlier, the siding for the proposed ADU is behind the garage. So in that respect, it's pretty much well concealed from the public way. You'll probably see a bit of the roof peeking above the roof of the garage. The topography of this site is that from the cul-de-sac, it actually slopes up to the garage, and then from the garage towards the back of the lot, it slopes down. So we're starting to build this ADU kind of on a lower elevation to start with, so that also helps to conceal it behind the garage. Adjacent to the carport addition to the garage, we would be building the one mandatory parking space for the ADU, with a walkway from that space down to the front door of the ADU. Architecturally, we took our clues more from the garage, which was added as part of the renovation when the Besletees bought the property. And that garage is kind of a simplified version of the existing house. It's less complex in both its architectural form and in its detailing. So the proposed ADU owes more to the garage than it does to the old house, although the color palette would be the same, architectural detailing would be simpler, and the basic forms would be more simple.
You want to take them through I know we submitted elevations and...
Yeah, do you want me to go through the floor plan? Are you interested in that?
Probably just the elevation.
I don't know how well you can see this, but I think you've got copies in your package.
Yeah, we have a copy here.
The top elevation is what you would see if viewed from the front, and you can see the existing garage with the two garage doors. You can see a bit of the breezeway connecting to the house. And then you can see the gable end of the proposed ADU poking up in the back, and some of the siding and roof of the ADU. The next elevation below that, rear elevation or the north elevation, on your left, you can see the back of the existing house, the breezeway connecting to the existing garage, and then in this case, the proposed ADU in front of the garage. And then the two side elevations are at the back of the sheet. The north elevation on the left side, you can see the garage. In that case, in that view, the breezeway is shown in section, and the ADU with a deck off the back, off to the right of the garage. And then the reciprocal elevation, the west elevation, on the bottom right-hand side corner of your sheet. You can see the garage on the right with the carport addition built off to the side, and then the ADU, and you can see entrance door between the entrance door to the ADU between the garage and the new ADU. On the gable ends, you can see we've picked up on the detailing of the existing garage, which is like a stucco with battens, painted battens at an angle. And then below that, clapboard siding with a 4.5-inch exposure, which is what is on the existing garage.
So, yeah, I guess, are you guys ready for
Any
questions,
comments?
comments?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, Roger?
I'm sorry. I don't have any problems with the ADU. It's really fine. We've actually approved an ADU in Jugtown previously. Maybe the first ADU in town was in Jugtown.
Right.
But I'd like to see more detail about the carport and the breezeway. You know, once things move along, that would be my concern because that's visible from the street. And I think the carport is actually probably more of a challenge than the breezeway in terms of fitting it in.
Certainly more visible than the
Yeah.
breezeway. I agree with that.
As the owner of a 2007 Volvo, I can sympathize.
Understood. No, we thought that might be somewhat of a concern, and I appreciate your feedback.
Thanks, Roger. Rita, did you have any comments or suggestions?
Covered in. My question? Oh, I
Yeah.
just put it on.
Yeah, if you get, to get close.
Yeah. My question also was about the carport, and I'm not 100% sure what your restrictions are, but I'm looking at this and thinking, why not expand the garage? I mean, like I said, I don't know what because it seems awkward to kind of squeeze a carport in there. And then the breezeway, like I said, I'm not 100% sure what your restrictions would be, but if you are trying to protect yourselves and your mom from the elements, why not enclose that? I just think, you know, when it snows.
Well, it's going to have a roof. The breezeway will have a roof. We just didn't think it would be attractive to kind of have like this tunnel thing from the garage to the house. But, you know, for the past 10 years, we've been suffering from the garage to the house if it's raining and cold. I think that the breezeway will just be 100% better, you know, protecting us from the elements, but not making it so, you know.
Well, I mean, I guess I guess you're comparing today to having something over, you know, right now there's nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm
Right.
thinking, if I were doing that or designing that, I would think about, there are ways to make a breezeway look like part of a house. So just my suggestions.
That's,
Talk to my
Yeah.
architect.
As far as the carport is concerned, we wanted to do it in as intrusive way as possible. We thought you might have a problem with 3 garage doors in sequence facing the cul-de-sac. So that was kind of our attitude towards that. We were just trying to keep it minimal.
I do take the point, though, just looking at this picture, you can see how the carport would be more visible from the street. I understood.
All right. Charlotte, any comments or suggestions? Could you go to the microphone again? Yeah.
The open breezeway, I think, well, seems adequate to me, but, and the carport, the only thing I wondered was maybe, I guess you slope the roof just simply for snow
Right.
that we're never going to have. Apparently. So, it just, I mean, I like keeping the integrity of the garage as you did and just adding.
Yeah, and the carport, we're stepping it back from the garage, the front wall of the garage and the rear wall of the garage to make that distinction between it. So.
Right, right. And I mean, if you could get away with a flat roof, I think it would look nicer, but if I understand why.
Water.
You feel, yeah. No, but it's a nice project, yeah.
David?
I think this is a really exciting project in that, well, that it benefits the senior Mrs. Bestily, but that I think it's going to be a really good example of using the locally approved several years ago ADU provision on a historic property that eventually that will help owners of historic properties maintain their properties because they're able to use this almost full acre of land to have, some more income and to sustain things. I think there's so much going on that sounds like pressure against individual property owners and what's going to happen on their lots that may be much smaller than this. This is an exciting, good example to see. And I like the reference to the existing garage and actually, I guess, the gable of the house with the exposed green boards. And, in its simplicity and its placement and all those things, I think you all have done a nice job, and good luck. We look forward to seeing it come in as a final project.
Yeah, I agree. I think the ADU itself is like great. It's sited beautifully. It's harmonious with the rest of the structures. And I just think the tricky part really is the carport and the breezeway. And I am kind of with Charlotte on maybe looking at a flat roof. I don't know, maybe simplifying a bit. So I think that's the trickiest part because that's visible and probably neighbors might weigh in on that. But as far as the ADU itself, I don't see any issue at all. Like, it looks beautiful. So, yeah, we hope you guys come back and, it's a beautiful part of town, and I think it's a smart thing to do, especially because, I think the master plan even encourages people to do this kind of thing. So it's like David said, it's a great example for other historic owners. Yeah, Roger.
One final point, and I'm not sure how much difference it matters, but Evelyn College was named after Sir John Evelyn, and it's actually pronounced Evelyn.
Evelyn, correct.
For the people who care. I mean, I'm not sure it matters that much, and I'm not even sure if it's 2 syllables or 3, but the writer Evelyn Waugh, same pronunciation. So I'm working on a piece about these pronunciations. It drives me nuts that the recording at Van Deventer Street says, you can cross Van Deventer Street. But I'm in a small minority, I think. But, there's something lost to the history when you lose the pronunciation. It's always going to be Houston Street in downtown Manhattan, because the guy's name was Houston. It actually was something Dutcher, but more Dutch rather. But I like to keep the history in the back of my mind. So.
Yeah, we're channeling Elric right now.
That's where I got it from.
Yeah.
Okay, Evelyn it is.
You got it.
How do you spell that?
That's a safe spelling.
All right, do you want Elizabeth, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes. Oops. So I think that my comment is very similar to Charlotte's, which has to do, and Frida and Julie, which is the carport. I guess you have the carport on the left, and then you have the ADU parking next to that. So you'll have 2 additional outdoor cars besides your garage, right? And I like the fact that the deck is sited to take advantage of that large maple tree, so you get some shade, canopy, sense of scale. But did you consider perhaps moving that carport behind the garage? But it's kind of tight if you're trying to get that deck and also retain that tree before you get into the root system.
Push the ADU into the tree.
Yeah, unless it was a different shape. That's the concern I have. I'm looking at it from the streetscape. That there's like 2 additional cars in addition to the garage there. If there was some way to perhaps pull it into the back, even if it was just 1 space versus 2. Even maybe flip that deck on the other side, but then you'd have to flip your whole footprint,
Yeah, you would.
It'd be different. And then as far as that, that breezeway, it could be used as some type of landscape trellis or something like that, if you
could have hanging
wanted to.
plants in it.
That type of thing. But that's the concern I have. And also, you know, according to your elevation, that is much higher just because of the peak of it. So I guess strategically, you know, we just want to see how that looks from the streetscape. I mean, we have one view, but obviously we got to go around that whole cul-de-sac to look
Are you
at it.
talking about this gable?
Yes.
With
And I understand it's going to be taller because the other one is a garage, which doesn't need that same height.
Yeah, we can probably lower that gable a bit, because if we have a ceiling height in the space, I was thinking I was hoping that that main space in the ADU would be a tall space with windows that could look up into the tree canopy. And the reality is that if our ceiling height exceeds 12 feet, we have to count the area twice.
That's
Put
right.
us over the top.
Right.
So, yeah, I think
And
that could be
how
low.
high were you thinking it was from the drawing? Pretty high?
Out to the apex?
So
or
was
the
it a
ceiling
cathedral
height?
ceiling? Was it open all the
Yeah,
way?
it is. That center section is a cathedral ceiling. but
Okay.
I wanted it to be higher, but then it would be counting twice, so, yeah, we can lower that a little bit. And we
Okay.
can certainly look at a flat roof on the carport, too.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. We hope you guys,
Thank you for your feedback.
everybody is doing well. Hope your mom is doing well and you're doing well.
Hopefully we can move forward from here.
And I'm sorry, it seems like they turned the heat off in here. So
Yeah, it's getting cold.
I guess they're kicking us out. I know. I'm like,
Thanks very much.
right,
you.
thank you so much.
Okay, good.
Well, yeah, no public, so no comment. There's no public comment.
No, we're clean.
And since it is freezing in here, yeah, all right. Now, do we have any other reports? Oh, we got to talk about April.
Yes.
Who can be here on April 14th?
So, I mean, I got responses from everyone except for David and Frida. So the dates are April 7th and April 14th. And I know that Charlotte can't come on the 14th, but she's available on the 7th. But I'm away until like the 4th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one out
so-
of the two. And then we would not have the meeting on the 21st, right?
So we're trying to help the Historical Society because they're kind of in an emergency situation because of their wagon barn. On the
right.
14th? Okay.
So I can do the 14th, you can do the 14th, you can do the 14th.
But then
David can do the 14th. Is Elric going to be back?
he's going to be available on both, but Charlotte can't do the 14th. She can only do
Okay.
the 7th.
But if we have Elric on the 14th, we could do the 14th.
Right.
We'd have
And-
a quorum.
Right, and so what I've done is I've asked the applicant to make sure their team is available on both those days, and if not, let me know. You know,
Okay.
I mean, I would want to do it sooner than later, only because it's hitting 70,
Yeah.
and the ground is getting softer.
Yeah.
And I'm very concerned about that building shifting, and they only stabilized it from the inside, and the crib part in the back has already collapsed.
Right, okay.
So,
All right.
but thank you, everyone, for those dates.
All right, yep. So we'll do our best. Okay, thanks. I guess, is that it? Are we adjourning?
There's also one other thing I want to let the commission know, that we did receive comments back from SHPO on the ordinance changes that came from Ed's office. So he's having his team look at it, and then I'll look at it after they do.
So we could become a certified local government?
Well, not yet.
Yeah.
They're considering it.
We're
again.
trying.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye.